Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, Saka here, and welcome back to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for absolute beginners. And today we are talking about our very last class from the Player's Handbook, the Learned, the Magical, the Wizard. The Wizard is for players who love magic, will attack from a distance, does not want to get into the thick of things in hand-to-hand combat, and just wants to lay the boom from a distance. As you can probably imagine, the Player's Handbook recommends that your highest roll go into Intelligence, as that is your spell casting ability. So your modifier is based on your Intelligence. The second highest roll can either go into Constitution or Dexterity, but because you have only a 1d6 hit die, your hit points at first level are 6 plus your modifier in Constitution. So if you don't want, to only have 6 hit points starting out, boost up your Constitution a bit. As far as armor proficiency goes, the Wizard is not proficient in any armor, so basic clothes and robes is how the Wizard rolls. As far as weapon proficiencies go, the Wizard isn't without their weapon uses. You can be proficient in daggers, darts, slings, which I do not have a card for, the quarterstaff, or the light crossbow. So if you want to keep things at a distance for sure, and you find a light crossbow, you might want to pick it up. 1d8 piercing damage certainly isn't bad if you're facing a creature with magical resistance, or it's a good way to keep enemies at bay. If someone comes running up on you though, a quarterstaff isn't bad to just whap them with, especially since it's versatile. Your hands should be empty anyway, so just grab that thing with 2 hands and let it go. However, it is a strength-based attack. It is a melee weapon, so if you're a weak wizard, you won't be doing much damage, and your modifier might actually be negative, so you're not that, you might not hit, but, it's a good backup plan. The Wizard is also not proficient with any tools of any kind, so it's just you, your spell book, and your spells. Mentally, though, you are tough to break, as Intelligence and Wisdom are your saving throws. You can add proficiency to those numbers there. Intelligence should be off the chart anyway because you're a wizard. If you skimped out on Wisdom, having that proficiency bonus in a Wisdom saving throw certainly is not bad. As far as skills go, you can choose to be proficient in 2 of the following: Arcana, History, Investigation, Religion, Insight, or Medicine. Your first choice of equipment: do you want a quarterstaff or do you want a dagger? The next step, like any other magic user, do you want an arcane focus or do you want a component pouch? You can also choose between the Scholar's Pack and the Explorer's Pack. And the one item that sets the Wizard unique from any other magic caster, they have their very own spell book. In your spell book, 3 cantrips of your choice, and they are listed right over here, and we will look at what makes the Wizard cantrips different, if any. And you also have 6 first level spells from the list. Now, you can prepare your Intelligence modifier plus your Wizard level minimum of 1 spell. So out of those 6, if your Intelligence modifier is a 5, which means you have a 20, impossible to do. But with racial bonuses and whatnot, maybe, just maybe, if you rolled an 18, got some racial bonus or background bonus to boost that Intelligence up to 20, and you can get that +5 right out of the gate. At level 1, you can have all 6 of those spells ready to go. You only have 2 slots at first level to cast them, but they are all prepared. You can choose new spells to prepare after a long rest, and each spell takes a minute per spell level to sort of remember how to cast it. So as you are sleeping, you think about what spells am I going to need tomorrow, and then you spend a minute per spell level. So these are all level 1 spells. So at level 1, you have 6 level 1 spells. You would spend 1 minute of each spell that you want to change in your spell book up to that number. You have your Intelligence modifier plus proficiency +8 for a spell save DC that the enemy would have to roll against to defend against your spells, and your attack modifier when you cast an actual attack like Magic Missile. It is your proficiency plus your Intelligence that you add to a d20 versus their armor class. One thing that the wizard can also do is ritual casting. So you cast a wizard spell as a ritual if the spell is a ritual that you have in your spell book and you don't need to have it prepared. So if you know that you know a ritual, like let's say, what's a good ritual here? The illusory script. And you're like, I am not going to waste a preparation on illusory script, but it's in your spellbook. You can take the 10 minutes needed to cast it to cast illusory script without using a spell slot, which is really, really cool. You also can use your arcane focus as a spell casting focus. And when you learn spells of first level and higher, you add 2 wizard spells of your choice, but the spells must be a level for which you have spell slots. So when you level up and you have access to level 2 spells, when you level up you can add 2 level 2 spells, etc., etc. You also have the arcane recovery, so you learn to regain magical energy by studying your spell book. So on a short rest, you choose expended spell slots to recover. The spell slots can have a combined level that is equal to or less than half your wizard level rounded up. So at level 1, half of that is 0.5, you round it up to 1. So during a short rest, you can get 1 of your spell slots back. As an example here, a 4th level can recover 2 spells of spell slots. And you can do 2nd or 1st level slots, whichever you've used. So when you take a break as a wizard, don't forget to recover some of your slots or prepare different spells if you are going to need them the next day. So these are the cantrips. You choose 3. We have the Acid Splash that we saw in the Sorcerer. We have the Blade Ward that we saw with the Bard, Sorcerer, and Warlock. The Chill Touch that we saw with the last 2 spellcasters. The Dancing Lights that we saw with the Bard and Sorcerer. The Firebolt, which we saw with the Sorcerer. The Friends, which we saw with the Bard, Sorcerer, and Warlock. The Light, which we saw with the Bard, the Cleric, the Sorcerer. The Mage Hand that we saw with the Bard, Sorcerer, and Warlock. Mending we saw with the Bard, Cleric, Druid, and Sorcerer. Message that we saw with the Bard and Sorcerer. Moving on up to our second group of cantrips with the Minor Illusion spell we saw with the Bard, Sorcerer, and Warlock. The Poison Spray we saw with the Druid, Sorcerer, and Warlock. Prestidigitation we saw with the Bard, Sorcerer, and Warlock. The Ray of Frost we saw with the Sorcerer and Wizard. Shocking Grasp we saw with the Sorcerer. And True Strike, the Bard, the Sorcerer, and the Warlock. So I know what you're thinking. All of these cantrips we've seen before. Yes, we did, but the Wizard has more spells at their disposal for level 1, let's say, including some varying spells that only 1 or 2 other classes have, and one, say, Tensor's Floating Disc that only the Wizard has. So that's what sets them apart. They know about the same things, but a Wizard can unlock more of them and know more of them from the get-go. Let's talk about those level 1 spells. So we have the Alarm spell we saw for the Ranger, the Burning Hands we saw with the Sorcerer, the Charm Person we saw with the Bard, Druid, Sorcerer, and Warlock, the Chromatic Orb we saw with the Sorcerer, the Color Spray we saw with the Sorcerer, Comprehend Language we saw with the Bard, Sorcerer, and Warlock, Detect Magic. The Warlock is the only spell casting class that does not have this in their spell list. Poor Warlock, but they do have Eldritch Blast and Hex, so that's not too bad. Disguise Self with the Bard and Sorcerer, Expeditious Retreat with the Sorcerer and Warlock, False Life with the Sorcerer, Featherfall with the Bard and Sorcerer. Second row, finding your familiar. So if you have a familiar and it's within 100 feet, you can communicate with it telepathically. If you've seen Critical Role, think Frumpkin for Caleb. Fog Cloud we saw with the Druid, Ranger, and Sorcerer. Grease is a wizard-only spell, so within 60 feet of you, it lasts for 1 whole minute, 1 action. Slick Grease covers the ground in a 10-foot square, centered on a point within that 60 feet, and turns it into difficult duration. When the grease appears, each creature standing must succeed on a dex saving throw or fall prone. The creature that enters the area or ends its turn must also succeed on a dexterity saving throw or fall prone. So if you want to keep people down on the ground and you have a massive spell save DC, which was that 8 plus intelligence modifier plus proficiency bonus, they're going to have a hard time keeping their feet under them for sure. Identify we saw with the Bard, the illusory script we saw with the Bard and Warlock, the jump we saw with the Druid, Ranger, and Sorcerer, the Long Strider, Bard, Druid, and Ranger, the Mage Armor we saw with the Sorcerer, Magic Missile we saw with the Sorcerer, Protection from Evil and Good we saw with the Cleric, Paladin, and Warlock, the Ray of Sickness we saw with the Sorcerer. Moving on to the third row of level 1 spells, the Shield we saw with the Sorcerer, Silent Image we saw with the Bard and Sorcerer, Sleep we saw with the Bard and Sorcerer, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, going back to the Bard on that one. Tensor's Floating Disc is a wizard-specific spell. Within 30 feet of you, it's only an action to cast, and it lasts 1 hour. The spell creates a circular horizontal plane of force 3 feet wide and 1 inch thick, and floats 3 feet above the ground in an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see within range. So essentially, a giant manhole appears. The disc remains for the duration. It can hold 500 pounds, so it can carry something. If more weight is placed on it, the spell ends and everything on the disc falls to the ground. It is immobile while you are within 20 feet of it. If you move more than 20 feet away, the disc follows you so that it remains exactly 20 feet from you. It can move across uneven terrain, up and down stairs, slopes, and the like, but it can't cross an elevation change of 10 feet or more, so a nice gentle slope. It can't follow you up a wall. For example, as you can see, it can't move across a 10-foot deep pit, nor could it leave the pit if it was created at the bottom. If you move 100 feet from the disc, because it can't move around an obstacle, the spell ends. So between 20 and 100 feet, it will do its best to follow you on nice even terrain, and it can carry 500 pounds. So an unconscious friend or something like that, you can use it as a mobile stretcher, which is pretty cool. The Thunder Wave, Bard, Druid, and Sorcerer, the Unseen Servant from the Bard and Warlock, and the Witch Bolt from the Sorcerer and Warlock. So you get to pick 6 of those spells, and you can prepare, as it said over here, you can prepare a number of spells that is your intelligence modifier plus your wizard level. So you have 6 in your book, you prepare intelligence plus 1, because you will be wizard level 1, and that will be how many spells you can cast in those 2 first level spell slots. So you've got your overarching spells that you have in your book, followed by the restriction of your spells prepared, so how many you are ready to cast. And then ultimately it comes down to how many spell slots you have. You have 2 first level spell slots at level 1, and you have your 3 cantrips, so you can cast essentially 5 spells before you need to take a short rest, do your arcane recovery, get one of those first level spell slots back, and you're back in the game, etc., etc. Looking forward to the Warlock's further skills at 2nd level, you pick a school that you specialize in. We have the Necromancy, the Enchantment, the Evocation, the Divination, the Illusion, the Transmutation, the Abjuration, and the Conjuration. So sort of like Oblivion Skyrim, you've got your basic school of spells that your wizard or spellcaster would get bonuses for or unlock special spells in that block. The wizard in D&D 5e can do just that. So ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for all of the basic classes in D&D 5e for absolute beginners. If you're one of the 4 people that have watched every one of these episodes, thank you so much. I see you out there. You're one of 25% to see this video. But hopefully if you find this video in the future, it's informative. What we have going forward. Brandon, you might recognize from my Thursday NASCAR Racing 2003 season series. After the season is over, he and I will be playing a game, a campaign of Dungeons & Dragons set in the world of Cyrodiil from the Elder Scrolls. So if you've played Oblivion, you'll be familiar with the landscape and towns that I will be taking him through. He's never played the Elder Scrolls or Dungeons & Dragons whatsoever, so it will be all new to him. Of course, I'm not going to rehash the actual game. I'll throw in my own flair, but that will just be the setting, familiar places. And also moving forward, in the meantime, I'll be highlighting the monsters from the Monster Manual, and we will be using a level 20 wizard. I'll get his spellbook absolutely full, and he will be with a level 1 fighter named Timmy, who will face off against every monster in the book to see how lethal are these monsters to a level 1 creature or character. And can they be saved by a level 20 wizard? Should be interesting and informative as well, but that will do it for me. Like, share, and subscribe if you are so bold. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you for the next Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition video. Take care.